Alright guys, welcome back to Death from Above 40k, and people have been asking for this, my Tactica on Blood Angels, what I think the good new units are, all that sort of stuff, my ideas and opinions, so here you've got it. So I've put together a 1500 point list of what I'll be using. Now before I go into the list, I just want to give a shout out to my boy Karen Aoki. That's obviously not his real name, that's the name he gave me to put on the channel, but that's what we're going with. He helped me with my new intro that you would have seen just up there. I'm not super good with computers and stuff like that. Super good. See, that's what I'm talking about. But he helped me with that. He saw what I was trying to do with my logo and everything. He got it on his computer and he helped me out with that. I'm really happy about it, so I just thought I'd give him a shout out. He's a fan of the channel and he decided to do that for me for nothing. I don't know how to do that stuff, so it's good for me anyway. I'm really happy with it. So obviously you might have seen better elsewhere, but hey, here in Australia, we appreciate these small little things. Alright, so let's go through the list. 1500 points. I'll quickly go through what I've put in it, and then we'll go through and break down. So far we've got the Sanguinor, or my version of the Sanguinor. Some people hate him. I went for a more vampiric look to him. So he's like a big angel of death. Yeah, very appropriate actually if you ask me. We've got the new Primaris Mephiston, which you've seen on the channel, and we've got our Sangri Priests. They're the 3 HQs in the list. They all have a role to play. Then we'll go through the troops. We've just got simply 1, 2, 3 intercessor squads, assault bolters, power fists on the sergeants. The only way to run them if you're running Blood Angels, in my opinion. Then in elites, we've got 4 elites. It's a Blood Angel army. It should have a lot of elites. So we've got the banner. We've got a 5-man unit of Sangri Guard with swords. We've got 10-man Death Company with 5 with axes, 5 with chainsaws, all with bolt guns. Then we've got a Redemptor Dread with just all the guns on him, so he's got the fist. Then he's got the heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, the onslaught Gatling cannon, the storm bolters, the Akaris rocket pod, you name it. If you can put a gun on him, it is on him. So that's the 4 elite choices. Then in fast attack, I have 1 choice, which is the Inceptors. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure I am. Dropped in points, went up in damage output, great. And then in heavy support, I got a Baal Predator, which is very controversial. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I've tested it out in a few battle reports, and the way I'm running it is going really well. So, first things I want to go over is improvements that I think have happened in the army that have really upped my game. And those things are, so first of all, the overall army rule for Blood Angels has changed a bit. So when it comes to the Red Thirst, we used to have add 1 to the wound rolls in the fight phase, which was already unreal. I thought it was the best of all the armies. It just means that you can run in even with the lowliest of blokes and punch holes in tanks. It's a beautiful thing. It's very Blood Angel-y. But now they've added in, that's also add 1 to charge and advance rolls. Now this adds massively to the army overall, considering it is a combat army. I want to iterate that. If you are playing Blood Angels, you are playing to get into combat. If you want to shoot, they can shoot, and they do shoot leading up to the combat. But the true reason that you play them is to get into your opponent's face and cut his head off with a chainsword, power fist, whatever you name it. If you can get your hands on it, get your hands on his neck, pull his head off, that's what you're here for. So the other thing is that allows us to move up the board quicker, allows us to get into assaults quicker, and also hit harder in the assault. So, and that's off from turn 1. So that's just our army-wide special rule. Really happy with that. That's a good job on GW's behalf. Gives it a little bit more flavour to the army. The next thing is we obviously got combat doctrines with the extra AP in each phase. Now in the first phase, heavy weapons are good. In this army I don't have a great deal of heavy weapons, but it still makes a big difference on the Big Dread and the Baal Predator. A hail of bullets coming at the enemy, going from AP1 to AP2 is quite considerably large and does make a big difference. The tactical doctrine is really handy too, because that mid-range game, when things like these guys start coming down and these guys start coming down, that extra AP on bolt guns just makes that difference. And then the holy grail is the assault doctrine, which is where you should always be aiming to go. You should be skipping ahead. Turn 3 should always be in the assault doctrine. That gives us an extra attack when we charge, so you get 2 attacks for charging, which is just sheer insanity, and the AP. So, you know, even just your intercessor guys will have 4 attacks at AP 1 on the charge. Let that sink in for a second. Yes, that's what's happening. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll break down the army. We'll go through each of the sections, HQs, troops, the reason I've chosen what I'm going to be doing with them on the battlefield. And then we'll do a bit of a summation at the end. I feel like I've covered a fair bit of that at the moment, but just round it up, you know what I mean? All right, so we'll start with the HQs and we'll get back to you in a second. All right guys, so let's break down some HQs. So, I've got 3 in this list. The way that it works out is that one's a beat stick, one's a semi-beat stick, and one is the warlord that provides me with my let's not get our warlord killed rule that we should all be trying to do. So, we'll start with the Sanguinor. So the reason the Sanguinorian, as I just said, he's the beat stick. So, he's got a movement of 12, hits on 2s, he's got 5 attacks, getting +1 for charging. Remember, obviously more of them when we get to the assault phase. And there's a few things that happen with this guy. He's got a points drop. He's only 130 points now. In combat, his sword is +2 strength, so strength 6, it's AP 4, and it's D3 damage. Now take into account that when we get to the assault phase, that's going to be AP 5. That could be wasted on a lot of things, but it just means even if something's got a 2-up armor save, he is slicing right through it. It's like back in 7th edition when you had an AP2 gun, you hit something that was just, you're off the table. The other thing too is he adds 1 to the attacks of Blood Angels within 6 of him. So that's himself as well, so that's another attack again. So he's got 5. So in the assault phase he'll have 8 attacks on the charge. That's pretty brutal when you consider his weapon, what he does. Obviously his death mask, it's the same as the other guys, it's a -1 to the leadership of the enemy. So the whole idea of him is to buff, so not only is he hit hard, but all the units around him are getting that extra attack. The other thing he's got is the Avenging Angel. Now I've used this several times in games and it's been really handy. He can back out of combat or retreat and then charge in the same phase. So he can charge even if he backed out of combat. It's brilliant. So you know, that whole idea of you can charge into, say, like some guardsmen or something at the front. You're obviously wanting to get to the tank to cut that in half. Stay in combat with the guardsmen, and then when it comes to your turn, if they haven't already moved out of combat to make do with their guns, which they probably will do, but just in case they don't, you get to jump out of combat and then assault something anyway. So it's really handy. It means that he's never tied up. He's always able to get to the targets he needs to. When he gets to the targets, he hits hard and he buffs the other targets. Alright, so the next one we got is Chief Librarian Mephiston, aka Super, I've been through the bloody, I can't even remember what they call it, some river he goes through and he come out even bigger again. So under the new rules, he's got a points drop and he's buffed up. Extra attack, extra wound, comes in handy. So Mephiston, the key to him is the psychic powers. So the psychic powers I give to him are the Quickening, Shield of Sanguinius, and Wings of Sanguinius. The reason for, so he starts on the table, you can use the shield on a vehicle or a unit or whatever you need to help them get up the board. It's a 5-up invulnerable save. So he's making use of his powers even early game. Obviously once he gets to that midfield, you want to be cracking off with Wings, which is at a casting value of 5, pretty much prone to go off. Gives him the fly keyword. His movement goes to 12, and also he can reroll failed charges. So that's pretty crazy. And then obviously the Quickening, which stacks with that, gives him add 3 to his advance and charge, which would be a 4 because we're Blood Angels, remember, that extra 1. So that's meaning that your charges are really likely to go off if you've got a reroll and a +4, and D3 additional attacks. So in the assault phase, nearing the end of the game, well, not the end of the game, sorry, turn 3, when things are really kicking off in the middle of the board, he would have 5 attacks, 1 for charging, an extra 1 for charging, which is 7, and then D3. So he can have up to 10 attacks. Now, his strength 5 and his weapon is ×2. So he goes up to strength 10. So you're getting up to 10, strength 10, AP 3 hits. In the assault phase, they go to AP 4. Keep this in mind, and D3 damage. So the two of these guys in the assault phase could run into, you know, because you're getting the +1 to wound as well, run into heavy vehicles and really crush them out. Knights, super heavy vehicles, Bane Blades, Predators. Well, actually a Predator would probably just melt like butter in front of one of these guys, or both of them, but you get my point. So hard hitting combat monsters with a little bit of support leading up. Alright, and then we've got the Warlord, which is funny considering he's next to these two guys, but you know how it works in 40k. You want to keep your guy alive. So I've taken a Sangreed Priest with a jump pack. He's only 70 points, which is really cheap. Chainsword, and he's got his Blood Chalice. The Blood Chalice adds +1 to the strength characteristic of Blood Angels within 6 of him. Now remember everything I just said before, so that means that he's buffed up to 7. You know, he's buffed up to 12 because it's ×2. Your average guys go up to 5. It's insanity, really. But it's great because in that combat phase, you're just stacking all these things to just really crush your enemy out. So what I do with him is I make him the Warlord. I usually pay a command point to give him Artificer Armor, so he gets a 5-up invulnerable and a 2-up save, just to try and keep him alive. And the other thing I give him is Artisan of War to make his Chainsword damage 2. Now it doesn't sound like much, but once again, when you get to the assault phase, he's getting +2 attacks on the charge, so it bumps him up to 5, +1 for the Chainsword, 6. If he's near the Sanguinor, that goes up to 7. Strength 5, AP 1, damage 2 hits with +1 to wound. So that actually starts to get quite scary even for a 70-point model like that. So they're the 3 HQs. Now a lot of people like to take captains and lieutenants for the rerolls. I'm more going for just volume of dice, so sort of countering out those rerolls with volume of dice. Alright, so that's the HQs that I've chosen. Also they're fluffy because they're, you know, special to the Blood Angels. You can't get these in other armies, you know, they're not captains, they're not, you know, you can't get these guys, any of these 3 in any other army. They're very specific to Blood Angels. Alright, so what we'll do next is move on to troops, tell you why I've chosen them, what I'm going to do with them. Alright guys, and here we are at the troops section. So, I've gone with 3 5-man units of Intercessor squads. It breaks my heart a little. I would like to run normal Marines, but they just... GW's managed to make a superior troop choice, and it's really hard to sort of go back to normal Marines. It's kind of you're going prime, you know, that you're going these guys, or you're going scouts for the super cheap, just objective holding. I like to have a good solid base of troops. I feel like in this kind of army, this is a good solid base of troops. It's, you know, they're 2 wound models, tough 4, 3-up save. It's not bad. So these come in at 99 points though for 5 blokes, the way I run them, because each unit, they have assault bolters and they have a power fist on the sergeant. The reason that I've set them up that way is they're always moving forward, they're always shooting, they're always assaulting. As you've probably read over the years, many people have done many tacticas on Blood Angels and they call it the ABCs, always be charging. If you've played Blood Angels, you would have heard this before, watching videos or playing yourself or guys at your local club, always be charging. So the whole idea is, I set them up at the very front of my deployment zone. Wherever the front line is, they're on that line. So straight off the bat, the assault bolters, you can run and shoot with them. It is at a -1, but they get 3 shots per guy. So it's a lot of shots, 15 shots per unit. Now, they move 6, and you get your run roll. Remembering we're adding +1 to that. So they can possibly move 13 inches off the line. So if you're your normal regular Dawn of War, you set them up at the front 12, you can be in the very center of the board by your first turn. So run in there, you got range 24 bolters, spray as many shots at whatever you need to shoot. Obviously first round, pick light targets and delete them off thing, you know, shoot screens with them. I had a battle report just not long ago where I played my brother and I used these guys to pretty much delete 30 Homogaunts. Just sheer number of shots and then just have that center board presence. Power Fist on the sergeants is important. I find that it's a midway weapon, so Power Sword, I had Power Swords on them, it wasn't quite scary enough, and a Thunderhammer's just that little bit too expensive for a Troops choice. So I've gone with the Humble Power Fist, 9 points. Once again, the Sergeant comes with 3 attacks, then +1 for charging in the assault phase. It's +2, so that's 5 Power Fist attacks on the charge. Yeah, it's -1 to hit, but you're probably going to hit with 3 of them. It's Strength 8, +1 to wound, and it'll be AP 4 in the assault phase. So a 9-point weapon really turns into something from turn 3 on. It's already a nasty weapon in the early, rounds of the game. If you can get in combat early and punch people with Power Fist, go ahead and do it. Once again, taking into account that we talked about the Sangri Priest giving +1, so that would make him Strength 10 Power Fists. Then we're also taking, if the Sanguinor's nearby, that's an extra attack as well. So that'll be 6 attacks on the Sergeant at Strength 10, AP 4, D3 damage. It gets quite scary. As I said, you can start mowing through vehicles with this, heavy infantry, even just things like orcs, because you're getting so many attacks that you just power fisting your way through them. It's not an issue. The normal guys, so starting first turn, running forward, obviously they don't have heavy weapons. You can put the grenade on them if you want and take advantage of that AP2 in the first round. It's up to you. I don't take it. I know it's only 1 point, but I never remember to use it. It's not worth it. Run them forward, spray a heap of bolter fire, centerboard presence. Then round 2, when you click over to the tactical doctrine, is an absolute hailstorm of AP1 fire from these guys. You don't have to run them in round 2 because you're already midfield, so you'll be just moving your 6 and getting into the grips of the enemy, unless they're like Tau and they're hiding way at the back of the board, but then you just rinse and repeat, run again. AP1 shots, 15 AP1 shots per unit. As I said, get into the assault phase and then really start punching things up. The other thing I wanted to put that I haven't really heard anyone talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, because people could be talking about it and I could just be not have heard it, but your bolt pistols go to AP1 as well. So I've written it down to try and remember when I'm in battle reports. Once you get into combat in that 3rd round, don't forget to shoot your bolt pistols, because you've got AP1 bolt pistols on these guys as well. They come with a free bolt pistol. Why not get an extra AP1 shot in on top of your attacks? It's just something, if you haven't heard it before, hopefully that's helped you out. If you have heard it before, we'll keep shooting those AP1 pistols. I can't even say it. Alright, so that's the troops and why I've chosen them. A lot of other people use scouts, and I also agree with that tactic as well. This is just how I run them, so it's just a matter of opinion and what you're doing with them. I like to run them into people's faces. Alright, so next thing we'll go over is the elites, which is probably the largest portion of the army. Alright, we'll get to it. Alright guys, let's break down the elites. So, this is probably the largest points section of the army. What I've got here is a Redemptor Dread, 10-man unit of Death Company, 5-man unit of Sangri Guard, and 1 Sangri Ancient. So we'll go over the Sangri Ancient first. Why is he in the list? Well, he's the magical banner. So, as we discussed before, a lot of people ask for, you don't have any rerolls. At range, I don't have any rerolls, but this guy allows you to reroll hits to wound of 1 in the combat phase. So, obviously we're aiming to get in combat, so you want to try and put him in that center, and then all those power fists and that we just discussed before, things like that are going to be wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s, you're kind of guaranteeing a high turnover of wounding. So, you're sort of really guaranteeing that redundancy. I've just given him the sword to keep him cheap. In case he does get in combat, he's not aimed to be in combat. Now, he has a relic, Standard of Sacrifice, which you probably all know of. That just gives pretty much a 5-up feel no pain in a 6-inch bubble, excuse me. Comes in very handy when you're sort of wherever you need it. That's the reason I went with the jump pack guy, because you can maneuver him around a lot easier to get him where you need the feel no pain. I used to run the Primaris Ancient, but with the movement of 6, it's sort of a very slow moving blob. With this guy, you can deep strike him in, you can have him bounce around, whatever it is that you need to do. He's more flexible. He gets a 2-up save as well, which is quite nice and just better at combat. And he still has a gun, which is 2 shots at range 12, AP1. So overall, pretty good, and he's cheaper by a couple of points, which was really nice. So I painted him up. That's why he's in the list. So he goes with all the other characters, creating the big bubble of death in the combat phase. So next to him, we got Sangri Guard. Cheap and cheerful. So I've given them all swords and their Angelus bolt guns. They've got their wings. They've got a massive point drop. I think that 5-man unit's only 140 points. When you're comparing it to like assault terminators or something that are up in the 200 and something points, it's really nice. They got a jump pack. I feel like a jump pack with range 12 movement is more of a threat in an assault army than heavy armor. Mind you, they do have a 2-up save anyway. They just don't have the invulnerable save. But as we discussed earlier, Mephiston can cast one on them if you really want to turn them into actual terminators. Their swords, AP3, their D3 damage, so really nice combat output there. Now with the +1 on the charge and the +2 in the combat phase, these guys really shine because I found that I struggled with them before. They just didn't get enough attacks. It wasn't working for me. Whereas now, with the Sanguinor near them, the Assault Doctrine, all those kind of things, they're getting 5 on the charge, which 15... attacks with this unit is really nice. AP3, AP4 in the Assault Doctrine, and also they get the +1 to wound. So really good unit. Can't say much more about it. Just get in there. I throw them at hard things. If they die, they die. They don't cost that many points. If they kill it, well, that's what they do. Next to them, Death Company. So I read a lot, talked to a lot of different people about the Death Company. What I wanted to do is have a decent size unit that didn't cost too many points and packed a punch. So what I went with is a 10-man unit. A lot of people will say run 15, and you can't really go wrong with that either. The only thing is the morale phase, but they're the Death Company. They're here to die. So what I've armed them with is they've all got bolt guns, so that when they come down in turn 2, because I keep them in Deep Strike Reserve, their bolt guns AP1. That's 20 AP1 strength 4 shots, just to add a bit more oomph to what they do. 5 of them have got chainswords and 5 of them have got power axes. So I find that evens out really well. It comes in at 205 points, which means that the 5 axes only cost 25 points, and that's pretty much the only upgrades besides the jetpacks, which means, in turn 2, if you do get the assault off, they're strength 5, AP2, what are you getting? Something like 4 attacks, and then when it gets to the assault phase, it's like 5 attacks per guy, and then the axes go to AP3, and then they've also got the +1 to wound. So the axe is a really good middle ground where, because of when they charge, they get the +1 to wound. It works out really well in terms of low point efficiency and damage output, I find. Chainswords, obviously just a massed amount of attacks on Death Company, and then obviously in the Assault Doctrine, they go up to AP1. So you're kind of winning. They come down turn 2, hailstorm of bolt rounds at AP1, blow some people out of their socks, then charge in. What I really do with them too is use the 3d6 assault stratagem. That way, with the +1 and also the 3d6, I haven't failed a charge yet. Probably going to fail them all from now on, but that usually gets them in there. Going back to the Sangri Guard as well, I usually start them on the field. This is a bit of a distraction. You can always fly them up in the air and move them around, do whatever you need to do. If you want to put them in Deep Strike, put them in Deep Strike. I find they're perfectly fine on the battlefield. So that's the Death Company. They've got a new stratagem which gives them a 5-up feel no pain. I've used it every game. As soon as someone shoots at me, I pop that stratagem. A 205 point unit. Why would you not pay 1 command point to have a 5-up feel no pain? I know that it's a command point. A lot of people are like, they should already just have a 5-up. It is what it is. Pay the point, get your 5-up feel no pain. Beautiful unit. Possibly thinking of running a second 10-man unit. I don't know what I'm going to arm them with yet, but stay tuned. All right. Then we've got the 4th Elite's Choice, one of my favourites. I love Dreadnought models, and when GW brought this out, I was like, this has to be in my Blood Angels army. So I based him up really nice, put wings on him, all that sort of stuff, and just really love the model. I'm going to do some more work on him soon. He got some really good bumps too. So obviously the extra attacks in combat make him a bit of a beast in combat. It allows him to, do a lot more damage than he normally would have before, because in the combat phase, he's getting the extra attacks. really high strength. He's got a 14, this fist is strength 14, and it goes up to AP 4. So really putting the hurt on things, D6 damage. Where he shines also now though is in the heavy doctrine, the first part of the game, all his cannons are all heavy, so they go to AP 2. So you can put downwind 18, strength 5, AP 2 shots. It's really nice. There's a new stratagem as well, big guns never tire, so that if you want to pay the point to move him and not have the penalty, you can fire all his guns at a 3 up instead of a 4 up. So you've got that option. I put the Icarus rocket pod on top just in case there's something with the fly keyword. I think it's got a bit of a buff now because instead of D3 damage, it's just flat 2 damage. It's also a heavy weapon, so turn 1, you know, if there's some elder jet bikes or something like that, you can smoke a few of them quite efficiently using this this model. Not that you couldn't smoke bloody elder jet bikes anyway, but I was using that as an example. Something with the fly keyword, maybe some wraiths or something along those lines. Actually, maybe not wraiths because I'm not sure if they have the keyword or they just disappear and reappear. This is where I need me brother Brad, but we'll get back to you on that. Point being is, you put down some really heavy firepower, keep up with the rest of the army because he has a movement of 9, and if he does make it into combat and he doesn't get the shit shot out of him, he can really punch on. The other thing is too, I think it's called Duty Eternal is a new stratagem, which for me personally makes dreadnoughts that little bit better if you're just running the 1 and you can pop the stratagem. It halves the damage rounding up. So that just gives them a little bit more to keep them alive. Being able to halve damage rounding up means, you know, someone drops down and does a heap of plasma shots at you or something overcharged. They're still only doing 1 damage, which might just keep you alive. It may not, but it's something, you know, it gives us something. I like it. It's good. So they're my 4 elite choices, and that's why I'm taking them. The next we'll do is I've only got 1 heavy and 1 fast, so I'll do them together. All right, we'll get back to you. Alright guys, last bit of the army, and I've put them together because there's only 2 units. So I only have 1 heavy support and 1 fast attack. So, heavy support is the Baal Predator with all DACA, and then we've got the Inceptors with all DACA as well. So they kind of play a very similar role in terms of what their purpose on the battlefield is. So I'll go through the Baal Predator first. A lot of people are like, don't play Baal Predators, they're no good. What I will say straight up is if you want to play them super competitively, which maybe that's not even a thing, but I think it is, I would run 3 of them, all flamers. That's the way to do it, I think, because same thing with everything else in the army, put it right up the front, charge it across the battlefield, advance it, and auto hit, and you know, all of it will be AP2. But at this point, this is the Predator I'm running, but that's just some food for thought. This is one that I had sitting around, I've had for a long time, so what I wanted to do was put it in the army because it's an iconic vehicle, and I remember being a little kid seeing the original one way back in the day, and like, if I ever had the money to get that, that's going in my army. Well, that day came, here it is. So, it's just pretty much a gunboat, an absolute massed amount of shots. What this vehicle cannot do is receive shots. You do not want to have this vehicle out in the open. A couple of las cannon shots, she'd be gone, mate. There'd be nothing left of it. So I try to hide it completely out of line of sight. It's got a movement of 12. So the whole idea is, as I spoke with the Dreadnought, this is the vehicle that I usually use the big guns never tire rule on it. Hide it as far forward as you can behind something. Try and block line of sight completely if possible. Move it straight to the center. Turn 1, pop that stratagem, and then just fire off an absolute shit ton of shots at AP2. The assault cannons, 12 shots, strength 6, it'll be AP2 while the heavy doctrine's on. Heavy bolters, another 6 shots, strength 5 AP2. Really good. Put the storm bolter on top, 2 points. Why wouldn't you do it? Because then in the next round, when it gets to tactical, you get an absolute shit ton of shots at AP1. So it's a win-win. If the vehicle blows up, it blows up. If it doesn't, it's only about 150 points. It's iconic. Put one in your list just to show that you're actual Blood Angels player. Come on, guys. Baal Predators for the win. I've had good success with it. Give me some feedback if you haven't had good success with it, what you have used it for. It might just be a paperweight for you, not sure. All right. So next unit we'll go on to Inceptors. These are really good. This is the reason that the Baal Predators probably not as efficient anymore, because this unit's now 121 points and it gets 18 strength 5 AP1 shots, and their assault. So you can have these guys off the battlefield and then deep strike them in and just have an absolute bloody good time with the boulders, which is what I do. So these guys stay in deep strike reserve. They come down in turn 2. In turn 2, their assault weapon, so they go to AP2. So you drop them down where you need some firepower. They're range 18, so they're easy to manipulate into a position that you need the firepower. And then just let rip with it. They're assault weapons, so there's no neg, and you get 18 shots. Then when it goes to the assault phase, just keep shooting. It'll just be AP1. It's pretty straightforward, this part of the army. It's just fire support. You've probably noticed throughout the army, there's no las cannons or anything like that. It's just pure Dakar and assault, and that's how it should be. All right, so that's them 2 units. So I'll do a quick summation of the whole army and we'll wrap this up. Alright guys, quick summation of the army. So we've gone through the units, why I've got them, what I'm doing with them. Just a quick overall of the army. So, as I just said just before, in the fast attack and the heavy support, you'll see there's no las cannons, there's no super heavy weapons or anything like that. The whole idea of this army is to get up in your grill, fire an absolute truckload of bullets at high AP, and then get in there and just chin ya. Fucking pow. That's how we do it down here in Oz. Just pow. So, you know, the thing you'll notice in all my armies too, which I think is the theme for 8th edition, is creating bubbles and buffs. It's just the way it is now. It causes you to do some weird stuff and group up, but that's okay. So, you know, these 4 or 3 HQs and this elite guy are really a sort of core to the army. You will have to protect them from things like snipers and that, because the amount of snipers, like if you take into regard Raven Guard, how many snipers and things they can put on the battlefield and how much they can target a character. If you don't play carefully, you will get snapped. It's just that simple. So be smart about your characters. As I said with everything else, put it in people's grill. Get up there. Move this thing forward. Daka, daka, daka. Same with the Dread. If he's still alive, get him in there punching things in the face. I think our key section of the codex is still the elite section. It kind of always has been. HQs and elites, we've always been very heavy there. Just, this is what I'm using. There's no perfect way of doing this. Find the characters that work for you. If you want to try these guys out, try them. You know, there's also Dante as well. If you want the re-rolls, then that's who you go to. You go to the man, you go to Dante, you go to the boss, you go to the oldest living Space Marine about town. That's what you do there. Alright? Otherwise, this is what I've done. It's a bit of a mix of old and new, which I'm really happy with. I don't want to go all Primaris. I think it's a very boring looking army. And I don't want to go all old Marines, because I think we've got access to some new cool stuff that we should be using. So a nice meet in the middle mix, and go from there. The other thing I'll say too is, as a Blood Angels player, we've got a beautiful range of miniatures to paint. They do take a little bit longer than normal Marines, but when you've painted them up, you will be happy you've done so. So, there you go. Bit of a roundup of the army. Hopefully this is helpful to you. If it's not helpful, well, sorry. Yeah, I'll get back to the drawing board. If it is helpful, if you've got any feedback, anything you'd like to add, let me know. If you like this sort of thing, like and subscribe. Thanks for the support, really appreciate it. Let's get on to ABCing in 2020, guys. Let's do it. Alright, enjoy.